Okay, so Pokemon Champion came out a while ago, and we want to talk about draft and draft league that are happening in Pokemon Champion. You know, I am a draft player. I have done draft videos on the channel, and yeah, I'm normally a VGT draft player, and this is probably the only draft league you can really make on Champion. So I want to talk about how to get a good draft, what to look out for, what to incorporate into a draft, and to get good results in a draft league. Because there are still some people who struggle with that, and today I'm gonna talk about that. So yeah, first of all, what do we need to be a good draft player, and what qualified me to tell you even about draft. So, my name is Rafael, and I am a decent VGT player. Uh, I have played since 2024, and yeah, I had some notable results, like on locals, and I have also been visible 2 or 3 times on stream, not as me playing, but at least in the notable matches. Yeah. And I am also a decent draft player. I have participated in several draft leagues in the last 2 years, and I would say I was quite good. Like on top, you can see the results of my last draft league, the Chaos League, where I just uploaded the finals yesterday. For me, it's yesterday. We will see when this video comes out, but for me, it's yesterday tonight for me. And yeah, I have also uploaded some draft videos before, so yeah, if you wanna watch, you can see I know a thing or two about draft. I'm not the perfect draft player. I don't wanna say that, but I know a thing or two about draft, and yeah, I wanna help you a little bit with that. So, how to draft in VGT and what do I need for that? First of all, I need to have VGT knowledge. And how the fuck do I get VGT knowledge? Shouldn't probably have said that. Well, we're gonna maybe beep it later, maybe not. Uh, you need, or you can get VGT knowledge through playing. Simple, plain playing. You need to play the game to get VGT knowledge. Champions is I would say, fairly accessible game. Or Pokemon Showdown, probably Champions is better because that's where you're gonna play the draft league. So just play the game. There are a few things you need to find out if you are a beginner. If you're a seasoned VGT player, it's probably easier for you if you have some experience with VGT. But also as a new player, you can pick up draft and be really good at it. The thing you need to understand is how to play VGT. So normally you need to find out a few things when you start playing VGT. So first of all, you need to experiment around. Like what I would recommend to do is start with like kind of meta Pokemon and meta teams that you know and everyone knows that are good, and just try and use them. Use these teams that everyone uses. Try them out. Try to play the game. Try to find out what your play style is. Try to find out how easy it comes to you in nature. to play the standard teams. And then if you have played a lot with those standard teams that everyone is using, then you should try and start getting into maybe some more abstract teams that are maybe not like considered the meta or in any kind of uh, way standard. So like maybe try to build something on your own. Although I would not recommend building teams yourself at the beginning. Like you need some time, just general game understanding and what is good and what is good into the good Pokemon. So maybe not directly build a team yourself, but there are also like off meta teams out there. There are probably people who can help you build a off meta team. Just try around. Maybe play with your favorite. If you have a favorite Pokemon, maybe try using it in a team. But of course, again, get help to build a team around that Pokemon. In Pokemon, it's normally not that you always play alone. You have people that help you build. Like the best players in the world still have people that help them build a team. And building a team together is way easier than just throwing yourself into it alone and trying to build a team by yourself. Then there are two things you need to find out. You need to find out if you are an offensive player or a defensive player. And what do I mean by that? Offensive player is a player that has normally very offensive strategies. So if you're a player that plays Pokemon like Charizard, Needler, Floette, and I don't know, again, really offensive cores that are not really around staying or sticking around for long. Pokemon that are meant to be really offensive and like pressure your opponent, like go into a certain way and just attack, 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 basically overpowering your Pokemon. That's an offensive play style. And if you are more like reactive to your opponent, like waiting for what your opponent is doing and then reacting to it, maybe playing a little bit slower, setting up for a turn, playing a lot around protect, fake out, witching, and just all around having a kind of defensive play style that is not really about pressuring your opponent and attacking, but more like defensive, reactive, maybe playing something like Leech Seed or Willow Whip and Light Green and Reflect, and then having regeneration and kind of playing a little bit more slow paced. That's a defensive play style because you are reacting to what your opponent does and you are really kind of not putting that much pressure out at the beginning and maybe waiting for the right moment to pressure. That's a more defensive play style. And then the other thing you need to find out is if you are a really linear player, so you play around one strategy like hard trick room or maybe a sun team that really needs the sun or a rain team that has just this one mode and like pressure your opponent with that one mode, but you only have that one mode, and if it doesn't work, like it's kind of hard for you. So if you are a linear player, or if you are a flexible player who plays with a team that is like more well-rounded around using different Pokemon and that you can bring every Pokemon, what we normally in VGC call something more like balance-ish style, or just a team that is really flexible to use, that maybe also has a strategy but can differ into another strategy, or is just all around Pokemon that can be used very flexible. It can also be a strategy if you don't have a main strategy, but you just have strong Pokemon that you know you can use well and play around them, and you can use different Pokemon. That is a more flexible play style, and you need to find out where you fit in and build your team and also take the team you use around that. So how does all of this compare to draft? How do we incorporate that into a draft, and how do we get a good draft out of that? There are a few things we need to watch out in draft, and the first thing that is really important is the type chart. A good draft covers a lot of type. So if you have a lot of Pokemon from different type, that is really really good in draft. If you can get a Pokemon from every type, that's good. Dual type Pokemon are really really good in draft most of the time. There are some exceptions, like most of them are support Pokemon, but dual type Pokemon that cover a lot of ground, are really really good in draft because they can you are more flexible. In draft you can't be a inflexible linear player that plays around one strategy. You need to have different kind of strategies. Balanced drafts do normally a lot better than drafts that are built around one kind of strategy. And I'm talking with experience because I did that before. Like having your team built around one strategy in draft normally really really hurts you because it kind of limits yourself and makes it easier for your opponent. Because yeah, you have more Pokemon that you can use, different Pokemon that you can bring to the battle. But if you only have one strategy you can build around, or maybe two strategies, you will have a really really hard time winning against your opponent because your opponent can counter especially that strategy. And if he has a flexible draft and you don't, he can counter your strategy and you don't know what to counter because he can maybe possibly bring more than like six Pokemon to the battle. He could maybe have another Pokemon into this slot that maybe does really good against your team because you only have your one strategy, and he can kind of play around and you don't know what to especially counter. That's the special thing about draft. You need to be flexible in your team. That doesn't mean you can't have a fixed strategy for your team. You can have different fixed strategies in a battle. So if you maybe play against the opponent you know has a really fast draft, you can use a trick room strategy, but you should be able to have other strategies in your team, like maybe a tailwind mode, maybe a rain mode, or whatever. You should be having more than one strategy in your draft to use. So, for example, if you have a restricted draft, like we had a regulation G draft in the last season, you saw the finals. If you pick like maybe Kyogre as your restricted Pokemon, then you shouldn't only have rain as strategy. Maybe have a tailwind mode, maybe have a mode where you don't use Kyogre at all, so you can play around without being too reliant on that one strategy and one opponent. Because if your opponent plays against you, he knows, oh, he has Kyogre, he will probably bring rain. He will probably bring something to counter rain, so you should maybe be able to play around with it more. And at best, you can cover every type with one of your Pokemon. So remember, as I said before, it is good to have a Pokemon of every type. Well, if you can't afford that, you should be able to cover every type. So some types cover more ground than others, and you should probably be able to cover every type. So if you can't afford to pick a Pokemon of every type, be able to cover every type. That's really important in draft. And now we talk about budget. Normally, you have a budget in draft, like you have 100 points that you can spend, and Pokemon have different values in the draft, and there are more expensive and cheaper Pokemon. And normally, it is good to have a balance between that. So, have a few really expensive Pokemon that are heavy hitters, that is like the main core you can build around. At best, you have one or two or three Pokemon that are really expensive, and then you have a few cheap ones, and the rest should fall into the middle. So, like, not really that expensive or too cheap, but like a good middle ground where you can pick a few Pokemon that can come to different battles that are not especially maybe, oh, I need a Pokemon to still fill a slot and I only have 3 points left, so I picked it. But a Pokemon that is solid. Maybe not the star of the show, but at least solid enough to come to many battles and be flexible to bring into different teams. And then there is the strategy of just picking a few really, really, really uh, expensive and then just a few cheap. But then the cheap picks need to be sniped. So you need to have either picked a Pokemon from an opponent that you know they really want, or you have spotted something that is, in your opinion, way too cheap, and you can kind of compensate because you think the Pokemon is way better to compensate for having another expensive Pokemon. And the third strategy is you go all balanced, like you don't have one expensive one you build around and some cheap that balance that out, but you go into a middle ground mode where you just pick solid Pokemon that you know work really well into different teams and battles, and just don't pick anything super expensive, and kind of get a good middle ground into your draft. Then now I want to talk about what kind of examples are good drafts and what are bad drafts and why. So these are all drafts that are from teams that I had, that are my draft. So these are experiences I had. And the first one is like a negative example I want to talk about. Um, to be honest, I made second place in the group stage with that draft, and then I got absolutely wrecked in the playoffs. But it was more kind of a luck-based thing because, like now it looked a little bit better, but before I had some other Pokemon like Chansey instead of Lurantis, I think, and the Hisuian Gudra was also put in later and Toad School. So like the draft looked a lot worse than the group stage. Um, but yeah, my idea was to build around Articuno. So this was not a good idea. Like in the draft, I started by picking History and Arcanine, and then I kind of picked Articuno, and then I picked Obama Snow because the Ninetales I didn't have in the beginning. Someone else picked the Ninetales, which was also really bad. And like at that point, I probably should have diverted from my plan of just playing around Articuno and try to trade Articuno later and play something different. Um, but then like a few Pokemon got sniped from me, and I was like, oh shit, and I panicked. And for Farigiraf, which I originally had, and Raikou, then I picked Gothitelle and Screamtail, and this was like not especially that good because I already had a dominant strategy in Snow. And then I picked around the Parish mode, and like the whole team kind of became this perish mode, no build up, and I didn't really have a lot of flexibility in my team. Like the only two really flexible Pokemon I had were Arcanine and Grafty, and Gothitelle and Screamtail proved to be really good because I played really well with them, but it wasn't like that good because they this was a good draft. They were good because I understood how to use them well. But this was probably my worst draft I ever did. This was horrible, and it was really hard to build teams with it. And I struggled every week to find something into my opponent to get a at least decent matchup. And like the last week, I also had a lot of luck involved to even win and to qualify for playoffs, because like till last week everything was like kind of open in my group, and that was really close. So that draft wasn't good, and it's just experience. This draft wasn't good. It lacked offensive power, it lacked the flexibility, and it lacked the type coverage. Like as you can see, there are a lot of types that are really really well into me, like fighting, like ice itself, like water. There are a lot of types I struggle into, and that in the end what broke my neck, why I lost. So don't recommend it. Wasn't a good draft at all. And now I want to talk about some really positive examples, like the draft you have already seen on the channel, like the last two videos I did, like the semifinals and the finals I uploaded, were with this draft. And I think this is a really flexible draft. This is a really good draft because, yeah, I have Eternatus as this restricted Pokemon. This was a Regulation G draft. And Eternatus was like the main Pokemon, but the real star of the show was Heatran. Because Heatran kind of took the pressure off Eternatus. It had a really good switching combination with Eternatus, and they could be on the field together. And they had like a second Pokemon that was like the heavy hitter who took a lot of pressure from Eternatus, and Farigiraf as well, that were really, really good to use. Iron Leaf as well. Like you can see, I had different strategies in this team. I had a Tailwind mode with Fletchling that also had priority with Gale Wings. I had a Electric Terrain mode. I had a Trick Room mode with Farigiraf. And I had this like all-out power mode with Heatran, Eternatus, and Torracat. I could play around balance with Mudsdale, Torracat. Like I could set up myself, and this team was really flexible, and it was probably one of my most favorite draft teams to use, because I think this is one of the best drafts I ever did. Because the team is so flexible, and I could use every Pokemon well around. I have a really wide spread of speed, which is also really important if you draft. Like, look at your speed, guys. I know a lot of drafts can get away with like similar speed stat, but it's really good if you have a wide spread speed in your draft. Then the draft that really got me into making this video, because it was the first time I learned how to draft really well, is this draft. So I have to say, the green Pokemon are for singles, and the yellow Pokemons are 6v6 doubles on level 100. And this was a team draft. I competed in it with the TTL, which is, if you have watched any video on the channel, probably one of those videos. Like the TTL is like the biggest series I had on my channel. And yeah, it is probably also one of my most favorite drafts. It again has Heatran, which was like my personal MVP, and in the end saved us a third place in the league because of the KD ratio. But it again has a lot of different strategies. We had like 3 different Tailwind Pokemon. We have a Trick Room mode. We have a kind of Sun mode with Arena and Heatran, even though we didn't really use that. We have a rain mode with Tornadus and Phantom, and all around we have different Pokemon with setup, with Trick Room, with Follow Me, a good Intimidate core, a good Speed Stat spread, and yeah, in the end it proved to be really good. We got third, and we could have gotten second place. We kind of bottled it in the last 2 weeks, but this was our fault as players. And this is another example of a really well balanced draft. I think we have a Pokemon of every type in there except Electric. And again, a draft I really favor because it was really, really good to use and it felt really good to use. So this is how you do a good draft, and I am really, really hoping that this helps you guys to have a good draft experience and play good in draft. And I hope that you all have a wonderful day. And now I say goodbye. Thank you for watching, and leave your opinions to this video in the comments. Thank you. Bye.